Denver Broncos are who we thought they were, ladies and gentlemen. It was too good to be true last week against the Dallas Cowboys as the Philadelphia Eagles soar into Empire Field at Mile High and take it to the Denver Broncos in a 17-point home loss. Not to mention our mobile quarterbacks, Vic Fangio's kryptonite, plus our bye-week wish list. Sayre, Bedinger, myself, we break all that down on today's brand new episode, Locked On Broncos.
You are Locked On Broncos, your daily Denver Broncos podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
What's up, Broncos country? Welcome back into a brand new episode of Locked On Broncos, your daily Denver Broncos podcast here on the Locked On NFL Network, your team every day from the South Stands to the end zone. I'm your host, as always, Cody Roark, joined alongside my co-host, Sayre Bedinger. Both of us cover the Denver Broncos for the Locked On NFL Network and 9 News. Make sure you follow, subscribe, free and available everywhere you get your podcast. Subscribe on YouTube, and thank you for making Locked On Broncos your first listen of the day. Sayre, it was just too good to be true, my friend, and the Broncos lay an egg at home. And look, I don't normally get I don't get emotional. I don't really have any things affect me in terms of outcomes of games usually for the Broncos, but man, I feel fatigued right now. The bye week couldn't come quicker. And it just, this whole game was a disaster for Denver from the very beginning. And all of a sudden it's like, you go last week, you dominate the NFL's best offense in the Dallas Cowboys, who explode this week. And then all of a sudden you come and you lay an egg at home. I don't get it, Sayre. This football team is so inconsistent.
Yeah, and that's the really disappointing thing I think about it, Cody, is the fact that you go out and you go into Dallas, you go into Jerry's world, you dominate the Cowboys last week, and you won the game the week before that as well against Washington, right? So now things are feeling good. Last week, the whole every day on the podcast was feeling really good. It felt like the Broncos had a really, really good chance to get into the bye week at 6-4, playing at home against a young quarterback. But like you said, they really struggle. Vic Fangio, that might be his kryptonite, the mobile quarterback. Jalen Hurts was awesome in this game. And like you tweeted out during the game, Cody, if the Eagles don't want Jalen Hurts, I mean, he would look good in orange and blue. So, yeah. And I think they're fixing to keep him around, though. Hopefully they make the wise decision there and value him. But yeah, it's extremely disappointing. I mean, how you can't look at it any two other ways. I mean, it was just from start to finish, this game really just felt like the Denver Broncos were not prepared, even though Vic Fangio said he didn't think they lacked focus in this game. It's clear to me, Cody, that they lacked a lot of other things if it wasn't focus.
Well, and even going back to it, too, I mean, there were significant levels of breakdowns and every facet of the game, offense, defense, and don't even get me started on special teams, man. And this is where, look, Broncos country, chime in. We know, we feel your pain here. This is frustrating. This has been very frustrating. But let's talk about the Broncos defense in general here. The key was coming in against Jalen Hurts, who we have even said, look, the Broncos can't overlook him as a passer. I mean, the Broncos came out against the Eagles with the same game plan that they came out against the Baltimore Ravens and Lamar Jackson. And look, while Jalen Hurts didn't take too many shots downfield, the couple of shots that he had downfield, he converted on. And luckily for the Broncos, one wide receiver dropped a touchdown right before halftime that would have made the score a lot bigger at half in terms of the deficit. But the big story here, the Broncos couldn't stop the run. Now, Philadelphia coming into this game, they were the 6th-ranked rushing offense in the NFL. And by design, they have a really good system there. Their offensive line is physical, and they got after the Broncos, and they had 214 total yards rushing in this game in combination with Jalen Hurts and Gainwell and Jordan Howard. I mean, they imposed their will on the Broncos here. So the rush defense, in my opinion, Sayre, was very disappointing from the standpoint that the Broncos simply couldn't get off the field. And even just simple things like contain on a couple of plays got lost, and it led to a first down. It was just death by inches here once again, Sayre. We're talking about it. And the Broncos offense, I mean, where do we even begin? Too inconsistent. You have your first drive, you go negative yards, you punt the football away. Your next 2 drives, you put together really good, productive drives that lead into scoring plays. And then you go back on your 4th drive, and it's the same, go backwards. I believe it was minus 15 yards and a punt on that whole entire thing. This game got away from the Denver Broncos really late in that 3rd quarter, Sayre, and I know we'll talk about it here in a minute, but just the theme, special teams, a blocked field goal. Once again, that could have led to points. It's the accumulation of things that we have went back on through week 1 all the way to now, and we said, okay, hey, this needs to be fixed. And, of course, these same issues are coming up, and it's hurting the Broncos.
Exactly. And I keep hearing, Cody, I keep reading on Twitter at least, that Teddy Bridgewater is the best quarterback this team has had since Peyton Manning. And that might be the worst compliment you could possibly receive at this point, because I mean,
Yeah.
they've all been really bad if that's the case. So unfortunately, and I don't want to just bag on Teddy Bridgewater, but he's the leader of this team, right? He's the quarterback. He's the one who's supposed to make everything go. He's supposed to be the catalyst. He's supposed to be the one, distributing the ball. We were told he was the safer option at the quarterback position, right? So if the best thing he does is just not turn the ball over, I think the Broncos need to once again consider the quarterback switch. And this is all super, it might seem super knee-jerk reaction type, after a loss like this. We're recording this fresh after the loss, and it is fresh. It is exactly that. But we've been calling for Drew Lock a number of times, and it's not like Teddy Bridgewater has been the reason the Broncos have won the 5 games that they've won. He has done a good job of taking care of the ball, but what is the reason for that, or how has that happened? Well, he takes a lot of sacks. He holds the ball for a really long time. And frankly, he's not distributing the ball to the receivers very well at all. Courtland Sutton, does the guy even play for our team anymore? The biggest contributions he's made in the last couple of weeks are some downfield pass interference calls. And frankly, Teddy Bridgewater is simply not getting the job done where it matters the most, which is in the red zone, which is what everyone knew about him coming in this year from Carolina. And we just assumed or hoped, or maybe just had this pie in the sky thought that, hey, you throw Tim Patrick and Courtland Sutton and Jerry Jeudy and Albert O and Noah Fant and all these guys out on the field, the red zone woes for Teddy Bridgewater are just going to magically disappear. But unfortunately, it seems like they've gotten way worse. And you said it off the air, Cody, 1 for 11 on third down in this game. If there's not interceptions happening or strip sacks happening to your quarterback, I don't know how much worse it can get from a productivity standpoint to make that change.
Well, and there's going to be a lot of things we talk about here a little bit later on the show, because the bye week is here, Sayre, and honestly, it couldn't come at a better time. I think Broncos fans are fatigued. I'm fatigued. I'm on the injury report now for the Broncos because I'm fatigued from watching such inconsistent football. And look, I love watching the Broncos, but I love watching football, Sayre, and we talked about it. The NFL has been so weird this year, and we talked about it at the open of the show. It was so weird that last week the Broncos go into Dallas, and they smack the Cowboys in the mouth, and they play really well. And there's everybody out there saying that the Broncos got lucky against the Cowboys. Denver's coverage and their defense against the Cowboys was spot on. I don't know if anybody went back and watched the game tape, but if you do it, you see that. This was one of those games where it seemed like the Broncos, for some reason, couldn't figure out how to stop mobile quarterbacks, which presents another question coming up here in just a moment. Are mobile quarterbacks the kryptonite for Vic Fangio and this defensive scheme? Something we're going to talk about here in just a moment, Sayre. But before we continue on, let's tell you about DirecTV Stream, the sponsor of today's episode, Lockdown Broncos post-game report. And ladies and gentlemen, does this sound familiar? You have 5 different logins to watch your favorite sports, TV, movies, or even your on-demand favorites. Well, that seems like a little bit of a hassle. Let me tell you about a way that you don't have to deal with that anymore, and it is DirecTV Stream. It lets you catch the game, and it lets you catch your on-demand favorites, your favorite movies, your favorite TV shows, all in one place without the clutter, without the inconsistency. And that is DirecTV Stream here today. And it's a great way to get your TV together. And it brings your live TV and your on-demand favorites together like never before, so you can watch your favorite sports, movies, and shows all in one place. That means no more juggling the remotes, no more need to buy another device ever again. And the best part, there is no annual contract. So get rid of the clutter, get rid of the confusion, and get your TV together with DirecTV Stream today. You can learn more at directtv.com. and you can see more details there. That's directtv.com. Compatible device is required. Content varies by package. As we open up the second half action on today's episode, Locked On Broncos, Sayre, I just want to say thank you so much to all the Broncos fans out there that through the first half of the season, they've come to Locked On Broncos every single day as their first listen for all the Broncos news, content, and coverage. A lot needs to happen this week for the bye week, and we're hoping that there's going to be some changes. But Sayre, before we get into talking about our bye week wish list coming up a little bit later, I think we have to really talk about Vic Fangio's defense here when it comes to mobile quarterbacks. Now, it's not too often you play super mobile quarterbacks to the extent of guys like Jalen Hurts or Lamar Jackson. Now, we knew coming into this matchup that Jalen Hurts was behind Lamar Jackson by 196 rushing yards in terms of rushing production. Okay, that's fantastic there for him. And look, I think the Eagles have their franchise guy, and we were kind of talking about it later. There's a bunch of Eagles fans that for some reason they're not sold on Jalen Hurts, and I would take Jalen Hurts on this Broncos team as their quarterback right now easily. I mean, I don't even think it would be a debate right now. I would definitely take Jalen Hurts here. But for example, I think that there is a bigger issue that is looming now. Even though the Broncos entered this bye week, Sarah, sitting at a 5-5 record, they're still very well in control of their destiny, and they have a chance for playoffs, right? Because the Pittsburgh Steelers game ended in a tie. The Cleveland Browns got smacked. Baker Mayfield got hurt. So that could obviously impact those situations where the Broncos lost those tiebreakers to those specific teams. But it's this mobile quarterback dynamic that really hurts the Broncos. And I'm looking at some other teams here on the schedule. Could you run into that a little bit, maybe with Justin Herbert? Now, he's not necessarily a mobile guy that's going to hurt you with his legs, but he loves to roll out. He loves to run that sprint pass. And guess who the Broncos play after the bye week, sir? The Los Angeles Chargers and Justin Herbert. So there's that. But the Broncos ran a lot of cover 0 and a lot of cover 1 here. Not the robber coverage we were used to seeing last week against the Dallas Cowboys, because the threat really for the Broncos, they felt they could match up with the weapons that Philadelphia has. And obviously Devonta Smith had a really good day. And his production in the red zone came specifically because of cover 0. Kyle Fuller outside leverage, the Broncos blitz, no help on the inside, easy touchdown. I mean, Sarah, in your opinion, do you feel like Vic Fangio has a hard time adjusting to athletic mobile quarterbacks, or do you feel like it's a personnel issue?
I think he has a hard time adjusting, Cody, and the proof is really in the pudding, right? We talked last week on the shows that we had about maybe, against Lamar Jackson, what we saw Vic Fangio do there, bringing that cover 0 that you mentioned wasn't the best of ideas. And sure enough, it burns the Broncos on that play. And frankly, you challenged Jalen Hurts to beat you with his arm, but you didn't really necessarily do it in a creative way. I mean, it was, like you said, it just felt like something was super off with the defense in this game. And it does feel like the mobile quarterback is Vic Fangio's kryptonite. And I think what really hurt in this game, Cody, is the injury to Baron Browning. And I thought going into this game, man, it would be a really good idea to have Browning as kind of your quarterback spy. And the Broncos tried a lot of man coverage, it looked like, early on in this game, and it just wasn't working out because they didn't have a spy on Jalen Hurts. There was that one play where Jalen scrambled for a ton of yardage, and Kenny Young was just sprinting back the other way. He was almost looking like he was out running as a lead blocker for Jalen Hurts on the play. And unfortunately, that it looked like that because the Broncos didn't necessarily plan for Jalen to get out of the pocket and break that contain. So it does feel like Vic Fangio's defensive scheme has gotten the better of by mobile quarterbacks in recent weeks.
Well, and I also want to throw it out here too, because look, I think Baron Browning, he and Kenny Young have so much potential together. I mean, it flashes off the tape when you watch them, but we knew Baron Browning coming into this matchup this week, he sat out one of the practices. I believe it was Wednesday and Thursday, he sat out with back spasms. He's having those issues there with his back. And then he comes back and practices Friday, does well in the walkthrough. First quarter, it flares up. And all of a sudden, you lose him now. So now you're forced to put in Curtis Robinson, who, look, no offense to Curtis Robinson, he's the Broncos' like 7th or 8th inside linebacker. He's a practice squad guy normally. So he's thrust into a position where he has to be on the field in meaningful reps without having a lot of reps in practice because of the fact that you have all these injuries, you have some of these inconsistencies that are happening. And so obviously Curtis Robinson struggled in this game. I think that the Broncos really just their defense in general struggled because of the fact that they're leaking guys like Jordan Howard out of the backfield, not on necessarily on swing routes, but they're stepping them up to the line of scrimmage and then leaking them out on out routes. That's a play that you were talking about with Kenny Young. Kenny Young saw Jordan Howard getting out there, so he had to go cover because he was wide open. And I was surprised Jalen Hurts honestly didn't throw him the ball because he would have catch and run. So he took it, had 30+ yards rushing on the ground. I mean, Denver, when they needed to get a stop there, they struggled with getting a stop, especially on some 3rd and long situations. When you look at Philadelphia, and I'm looking at it right here, they were 6 of 13 on 3rd down attempts there. That's very efficient. And when you can run the ball the way that you do, they controlled the time of possession 34 minutes in comparison to Denver's 25. And I want to say that 25 minutes of possession for Denver is very skewed considering the 4th quarter there. The Broncos defense got a couple of stops there late in that 4th quarter, and so the Broncos possessed the ball a little bit longer. But Sarah, I would say even the one thing that was a little bit more disappointing for me here is even late in that 4th quarter, okay, yeah, you're down 30-13. There's 7 minutes left in the game. The Broncos have the ball, and there's no sense of urgency. So all of a sudden last week we see urgency. This week, we don't see urgency. And a lot of it, too, I understand you can't stick with the run game when you're down multiple scores, but let's talk about really the play that broke things open here for the Denver Broncos, and it came really at the end of that 3rd quarter. 4th down, the Broncos go for a Melvin Gordon handoff. He fumbles the ball. Davion Taylor knocks the ball out. Darius Slay picks it up, and he runs it for a touchdown. I believe it was an 83-yard fumble recovery for a touchdown, literally with 0 seconds on the clock and to end that 3rd quarter. the most disappointing thing of that, Melvin Gordon's trying to get back there. Obviously, he fumbled. He's trying to get up. He's trying to run and make a tackle. Teddy Bridgewater is literally right there with Darius Slay. Literally, Sayre, if it's me to this microphone, I'm going to move the mic to my right side a little bit. He was this distance away from it, and he didn't even attempt to tackle him. I think this was the game where Teddy Bridgewater pretty much lost a good portion of the Broncos fan base, because that effort play, I understand it. People are talking about, well, look what happened to Baker Mayfield. Here's the deal. There's 11 football players on the field. They have a helmet. They have a shoulder pad, and you have to be able to tackle. Look, yes, I get it, Teddy. You did not fumble the football there, but you could at least save a potential touchdown there. If the Broncos, let's say Teddy tackles Darius Slay, what if the Broncos defense does get a stop, Sayre, to open up that fourth quarter? Instead, they enter with a 14-point deficit. Things like that add up. It's a snowball effect, and it leaves a very sour taste in your mouth. I just, from somebody who loves football, Sayre, watching that, it left a sour taste in my mouth. I mean, you see it all the time. Yes, Tom Brady doesn't go chase interceptions. Baker Mayfield did, and he got hurt. But here's the deal. You can't use that as an excuse to not make a play when it could potentially save a touchdown, something that could change the outcome of the game, which it did in this instance.
I think that's really well said, Cody, and it makes me furious just to even see the screenshots and the screen grabs that people are doing. I mean, it looks worse the more you watch it. And for Teddy Bridgewater, you're not Tom Brady, and people will bring up, yeah, Peyton Manning would have done the same thing, but you're not Peyton Manning. You're not the MVP of the NFL, right?
Peyton at least tried to tackle dudes.
Yeah, and even then too, like when Peyton was throwing pick sixes, or when he was having to run to tackle somebody, the Broncos were probably at that point at this point in the season when he was doing that, they were probably like 8-2 or 7-1 or something like that. Well, the Broncos are 5-4, and you're fighting and scratching and clawing for the playoffs. You're fighting and scratching and clawing for any bit of relevance. And Teddy, you know what? You got to pick up your teammate. You're the quarterback, and I agree. With a lot of these quarterbacks, they should be making business decisions. And Teddy's already had a concussion this year. He's already had a couple of other injuries. So I get it. But, is he really thinking about that in that moment? Is he really thinking about the fact that, while that play is happening, while Darius Slay is running down the field and he's kind of running alongside him, like you said, inches away, is he really thinking about, man, I had a concussion a few weeks back, I should probably lay off? Is that happening in real time? I just don't buy that. And I think that maybe Teddy will get to hear from him at some point here in the near future, whether it's, Sunday night as we're recording this, we'll get to hear a presser later or what have you. But it'll be interesting to hear what he has to say about that. And if he was just like, look, I got a concussion earlier this season. I didn't want to get hurt. At least you could respect the honesty there. But man, at the same time, everybody that's listening to this podcast wants the Denver Broncos to win games. And if your quarterback doesn't give off the same vibe, I will do anything to help the Denver Broncos win games. If your quarterback,
but I won't do that.
But I won't do that. Exactly. If your quarterback's not willing to do whatever it takes to win a game, Cody, to me, that's the most unacceptable thing about it.
Yeah, and that's the frustrating pain point about this whole entire game when you go back. There's a couple of plays, and we're going to bring up another Teddy Bridgewater play. And like you said earlier, I don't want to sound like we're just sitting here bagging on Teddy the whole show, but there's some things obviously we have to address, especially with the bye week coming up. And that means there is a bye week wish list that both Sayre and I have discussed that maybe we want to bring up in Broncos country. You're more than welcome to get involved in the conversation. Reply on YouTube to this video with your Broncos bye week wish list, or also tweet us on Twitter at Cody Roark NFL, at Sayre Bedinger. Coming up here in just a moment, we're going to get to that, but let's tell you about Built Bar, the sponsor of today's episode, Lockdown Broncos post-game report. And yes, Thanksgiving's coming up. That means there's a lot of pie, right? And pie's really good. It's tasty. It tastes really sweet. But Sayre, a slice of pie usually on average contains about 300 calories. I like pie, and I'm probably going to have a lot of pie this Thanksgiving. But in the meantime, while I need a healthy substitute until Thanksgiving Day, I like to settle for Built Bar, which is a great, fantastic, delicious treat to have. That is not only a protein bar, the best protein bar out there on the market, but also the healthiest protein bar out there on the market today. The bars contain 17 grams of protein, 130 calories, and only 4 grams of sugar per bar. And they taste legitimately like a candy bar because the bars are made out of 100% milk chocolate. They have 9 amazing, delicious flavors, including the occasional limited time flavor that you can check out at built.com. For the holiday season, make sure you get you and your family a box of Built Bar by going to built.com. And when you go to checkout, make sure you type in promo code LOCKED15. That's going to get you 15% off your next order. Once again, promo code LOCK15 gets you 15% off at built.com. And our other sponsor of today's episode of the show is our good friends over there, betonline.ag. And as we approach the bye weeks there, we have NFL action, we have NBA action, UFC, MMA action, and BetOnline is the number one place for all the action when it comes to your sports betting. Head to the new website. They have a brand new updated interface that makes it easy for users to find the latest odds, props, and contest information and sign up today. And make sure you use promo code LOCKEDON. That's going to give you a 50% welcome deposit bonus when you first sign up with betonline.ag today. Promo code LOCKEDON gets you 50% welcome bonus on your first sign up today. Check it out. From basketball, football, baseball, right to your favorite Vegas casino games. Don't wait to take advantage of all the amazing offers for the 2021 season at betonline.ag. BetOnline is also the fastest and easiest way to bet on all your favorite sports. BetOnline, where the game starts. All right, Sayre, as we jump into the fourth quarter action, today's episode, Lockdown Broncos. Unfortunately, the Broncos fall to 5-5 heading into the bye week. The next matchup is going to be against the LA Chargers coming off the bye week. Obviously, there's a lot the Broncos have to do between now and then. We just want to say thank you so much for making Lockdown Broncos your first listen of the day every single day. We have you covered all throughout the bye week as well. We have a lot of fun and interactive segments planned for you, the listeners all across Broncos country. But Sayre, let's get into our bye week wish list here. And look, I'm going to start things off here. And I put this down on my whiteboard right in front of me. And it says new quarterback, ? And the reason I say that, this is an offense led by Teddy Bridgewater. And I put this tweet out there. When the Broncos have a lead, Sayre, Teddy Bridgewater is probably the best bet you can have in terms of the quarterback position there, because you can hand the ball off. He's going to throw those short dink and dunk passes. But when this team is trailing by 14 points, you need someone that's going to test downfield. And there was a wide open miss. He could have had Jerry Jeudy. It was an out and up. He threw it way before Jeudy broke on the up, and it was incomplete on 3rd and 15. But there was one play that I'd say is probably the most frustrating outside of the non-tackle attempt of Darius Slay. You're not going to win this game. Denver's driving downfield. They're in the red zone. Tim Patrick is wide open. If Teddy sets his feet and he throws a strike, he's going to find Tim Patrick wide open, and it's going to be a touchdown. The score is going to be a little bit more respectable than losing it by 17 at home. Instead, on 4th down, he throws it out of the back of the end zone, throws it away, essentially. I mean, Tim Patrick had no chance of that, so he threw it away, and from that moment, the Boo Birds came in. Sayre, in my opinion, here's where the Broncos are at heading into the bye week, okay? You're 5-5. You know that if you're trailing, it's not going to work with Teddy. And look, we've been on record of saying it here. We don't know how it would look like with Drew Lock. And yes, Drew Lock wouldn't have played in this game anyways because he was out due to COVID. Brett Rippon would have probably stepped in if the Broncos were to make any change there. But why not roll with Drew Lock in the second half of the season and really try to focus on establishing the run with Melvin Gordon, Javonte Williams? And yes, I know Melvin fumbled. I know Broncos fans are mad at him. Yes, you have every right to be mad at Melvin Gordon. But he and Javonte Williams together, Sayre, when they're in rhythm, I tell you what, it's fun to watch. It's special. And the Broncos offense, for some reason, goes away from it. And yes, no Pat Shermer in this game. He's out due to COVID. Mike Shula was calling it from the sideline. I get it. That's not an excuse, though, because the Broncos at times were in rhythm with the run game. I just think that maybe a new quarterback's going to give them a chance to have life, to throw the ball downfield, because defenses are now playing when they have the lead. They're playing off, and they're just allowing Teddy to throw it short, and they're rallying. And Sayre, this is not sustainable for the rest of the season if the Broncos want to have a chance to get into the playoffs.
It's not sustainable at all. And I love the play that you brought up, Cody, the play to Tim Patrick. The play right before that, too, he sailed it out of the end zone as well on an opportunity to score on 3rd and 7. So, yeah, you're throwing the ball 10 yards over Tim Patrick's head on 4th and 7. Doesn't make any sense. And it wasn't like he just missed. You know, it was a really, really bad throw. It almost looked like he – I hate to assume things, but, I mean, it's kind of like when you're ticked off about – being ice cold, like on the basketball court or something, you just kind of chuck a ball at the backboard or something because you're just ticked off. And he was probably just ticked off at that point. So I agree. It's not sustainable. I think it is time to make a change. I think it's time to let Drew Lock go out there and see what you got. You know, the running game is going to work against loaded boxes. The Broncos have been seeing that all season long. So it's not like that's going to change. But what it does give you the opportunity to do is use Drew Lock where he's best. Off play action, get him the opportunity to get out in space, make some throws, get your vertical passing attack going. Let's see some more of those deep in routes from the receivers. Let's see some more deep in routes, Cody. Let's see some more targets in general for Tim Patrick and Courtland Sutton and even Jerry Jeudy, who in this game, you know, he was getting a lot of targets, but only on like 3 and 4 yard curl routes, it seems. Yeah. So I want to see more involvement from those outside receivers, and the running game is nice to see. It's nice to see some consistency there, right? They have been having success there. The line is blocking fairly well in that regard. So it's not sustainable, though, the way Teddy Bridgewater is playing the quarterback position right now.
Well, I love seeing Quinn Miners pull as well. He's going to be fun to watch, Sayre. And look, I'm glad he's getting in now. He's getting an opportunity to work in there. But even too, you mentioned targets here. And I just want to mention here, Courtland Sutton had 3 targets in this game. He had 1 catch for 26 yards, and his second catch was only for 3 yards. But you have a guy like him, and the Broncos, Teddy Bridgewater is not even looking to go to him. Courtland Sutton has as many targets as a receiver as Javonte Williams has as a receiver. That, in my opinion, Sarah, is unacceptable. You mentioned Jerry Jeudy. Love having him back. 9 targets, 6 catches, but you have to distribute the ball a little bit more. Okay, Albert Okwuegbunam got involved. Noah Fant got involved. It's nice to see, but when you fixate on certain parts of the field, it becomes easier on film for defenses to go and say, hey, we can really do this against one of their bigger receivers. We know these guys are going to catch the ball. Let's limit it to them throwing it to this guy short. And look, Albert Okwuegbunam had a really good play in this game, and I don't want this episode to sound completely negative. I think if we could talk about guys that really stood out there here quickly, I'm going to go with Albert Okwuegbunam. I'm going to say Jonathan Cooper was once again flashing off the screen for me. And even Patrick Surtain, he had great coverage against Devonta Smith on that touchdown catch. That was a great throw and even a better play there by Devonta Smith. So here's the deal. I can't get mad at Patrick Surtain for that. He almost had an interception, though. And obviously Justin Simmons had an interception in this game. It's just when the Broncos needed their D-line to step up, they just couldn't do it. And the linebackers had a hard time. And look, Kenny Young was fighting through blocks, but they were running right at Curtis Robinson. So you go back and watch this game, it leaves a little bit of a sour taste in your mouth. I agree with you. I think the Broncos need to look at maybe a different quarterback in the second half of the season. I just don't think that what they're doing right now is sustainable. Will that happen? I mean, Sarah, let's be real. Vic Fangio came out in his post-game press conference and he said that he thought Teddy Bridgewater played well. I didn't see it necessarily. I saw Teddy playing it way too safe. And in my opinion, Sarah, that's been the issue. The Broncos are playing things way too safe and they're scared to take chances. And when they do, it's completely, discombobulated. I don't even know what word I was going to say there. I finally found it. Thank you, dictionary. But outside of that, something else has to change. And I'm going to say it too, because this has been something that, and you and I were talking off air, it seems like there's 2 plays every game where the Broncos special teams unit comes back and they just absolutely hinder whatever progress the team is making. And sure enough, you have 2 weeks in a row. Last week it was a blocked punt. Fortunately enough for them, the Cowboys touch it and you were able to recover it again. And that was the Broncos ball. Great rule, by the way. I don't care what Jerry Jones has to say. He's an idiot. But outside of that, you have a blocked field goal. And Sarah, simply things like that, when it takes points off the board, it's unacceptable. And once again, special teams continues to hurt the Broncos.
It's a real shame, right? I mean, Tom McMahon, his unit, they continue to stumble every single week. They continue to make one really, really bad mistake every single week, at least one, and if it's not a really bad mistake, as in giving up blocked kicks, which those seem to be far too frequently, it's, missed field goals, or it's holding penalties on this, punt return, kick return. It's false starts on your field goal. It's stupid stuff that's, shouldn't be happening. And Tom McMahon at his press conference on Friday, for anyone who watched it, I might have been one of like 5, he was like, that all falls on me. That's all on me. And I'm like, all right, well,
we hear that every week.
So what? So what now? It's like, what are you going to actually do about it? Let's stop talking about, we got to do this better. Let's actually see it happen.
No, I'm with you. And honestly, I don't know what more we can say. Thankfully, the bye week is here. It couldn't have come at a better time. And with that said, I'm going to throw the pen up in the air. Broncos country, thank you so much for tuning in to today's episode, Lockdown Broncos. We're with you. We're living in a world of suck right now. This is a very disappointing loss. And this is coming from somebody who doesn't get emotionally invested in the outcomes of Broncos games. When they win, it's cool because the fan base is excited. It makes me excited. But when they lose, it sucks for everybody. And so this was one of those dejecting losses that myself and Sayre Bedinger, we have felt, and we're with you there, Broncos country. Stay with us. We appreciate you. We're going to guide you through the good and the bad here in the Lockdown Broncos podcast. But thank you so much for taking time out of your day to listen to the Lockdown Broncos podcast as your first listen of the day. And for your second listen, go check out the Peacock and Williamson show here on the Locked On NFL Network. Sayre Bedinger and myself will see you tomorrow for a brand new mailbag episode, Locked On Broncos.